many familiar faces, and really looking forward to today, to
Me too, Peter.
Dialogue. Yeah.
And actually, you know, as I was getting ready for today's call, I thought I will just spring something on you, because Peter and I will meet in Japan next week in Tokyo, as one does, you know, which to me it sounds really crazy to be in Tokyo with Peter at the same time, and we'll have the great pleasure to have an afternoon together. And for this afternoon, Peter, as you remember, we decided we'll lead into this with a sort of a bit of a framing, a bit of an interview about the state of the world. And I thought maybe we'll do, you know, sort of a rehearsal dinner tonight and try this, you know, we'll see where we land, but at least it gives us a moment to already connect to the themes and topics that we'll be talking about next week.
Well, yes, I mean, we can start there. Of course, the state of the world will be changed next week already, but let's go for it.
Yes, of course. And I'm realizing I didn't have my self view here. So let me fixate us for a moment. Yes, the state of the world. No, of course. But so let me maybe start with some of the notes that I had taken for this conversation that we will be having in Tokyo together. You know, so as I think, are all more or less painfully aware of at this moment in time, there is an increased chaos and disorder that we all sense globally in the world. And this disorder and chaos, of course, breeds a particular kind of insecurity, right? And this insecurity is a feeling that is, of course, connected to a feeling of fear, right? So when we feel insecure, what is really at the root of it is a feeling of fear. And we don't like to feel fear. Most people are not very comfortable with their fear response. So we jump into something, Peter, that we've labeled actionism. In German, that is an actual word. I think in English, not so much, but I could imagine that people have an instant idea of what is meant by actionism. So, you know, that shows up in different ways. Collectively, of course, through increased military spending, and an increased number of armed, violent conflicts that really don't appear to be going anywhere healthily, at least. And individually, it has a lot to do with people either acting out their anger or trying to numb themselves, to not feel, by fleeing themselves into work, into drugs, or any other experiences that basically remove them from the experience in the moment. And none of these strategies increase security, right? But they rather disconnect us from our ability to connect to life, right? To be in peaceful alignment with life and to experience a sense of abundance that is grounded in our being. So that is the context. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts around this at this particular moment in time?
Well, I have so many thoughts. It's a big question, and it's difficult to know how to answer concisely. But you used just now at the end the word abundance. And in my book, 30 Lies About Money, I do have one chapter on this, and I call it the awfulness of abundance, which is not what most people associate it with. But I chose that word awfulness very carefully because I think it's a wonderful, awful is a wonderful word in both senses, that we can be full of awe at what the universe provides for us in terms of everything. And there really is, in reality, no shortage of anything. And the experience of abundance is sometimes what we think of as a horror. It is awful. Because if you invoke abundance, and many people like to do this, you may not realize that you're invoking everything that you may want in the world, and the word want in English actually applies lack. So you may be thinking of you're missing something, and therefore you want abundance, you're lacking something. And when you invoke it, you are invoking everything. So you might be invoking the things that you don't want also, which might be actually horrific. And that's what you're inviting with abundance. So I like to make the distinction between the abundance and prosperity, because I think what most people would like to do is actually prosper. And I find it a very important distinction to make.
So prosperity, in a sense, is the healthier expression of the polarity that is included in abundance.
Exactly. And I think that's what people want. But I think what we actually need is to be the willingness to go consciously into abundance. In other words, to be able to hold and take both ends of the polarity. Because I think that's where actually we are heading right now with all these insecurities in the world. We're heading into this space, which on the one hand is like everything good, everything bad we could possibly imagine. And on the other hand, at the other end of the circle, where these two ends meet, is nothingness, which for many people is the biggest horror as they approach. They can't imagine what a horror that can be, that big zero nothingness in which to find themselves. And those are maybe the bigger fears that we face, which the fear that you're referring to, fear of insecurity, is actually a smaller fear, which we think we know how to deal with by making more money, by manipulating things. We think we can get over that fear or deal with that fear. It's the way we're used to dealing with that fear. But the way your question was around the way the world is moving right now, clearly our institutions and our governments and including our economic systems and our security systems are all failing at the moment. And we're part of this. We're part of this grand plan in the universe, if one can call it that. And that's, we can be happy to be alive with that or not happy to be alive with that, but I think that's for me, the reality we are in at the moment. And with so many questions of that we don't really know how to deal with yet, or may never know.
What this brings to mind is years ago when I studied psychology, I was exposed to a theory in social psychology called the terror management theory, which was based on the work of an American philosopher by the name of Ernest Becker. And in a nutshell, the theory says that a lot of the things that we experience as culture, as human culture, Ernest Becker actually sort of disgraced as anxiety buffers. He said the only thing they do is they numb us from the existential fear that is buried deep in our hearts, which is when we realize that we are impermanent beings, and impermanent beings in the sense of I have not existed at one point, and also I will not exist at one point, and that this knowing is too big for us to carry. So to not feel it, we create reference systems that give our life meaning, that anchor us in reality, and in a sense give us a sharp tool with which we can cut into the bark of time. I was here and it mattered. And what the social psychologists found out is there's actually a lot of research around this. Is some of it is quite entertaining because social psychologists come up with crazy experiments. But at the core of it is when people have this unconscious fear of non-existence, everything becomes constricted, right? They become more homophobic. They become more against foreigners. They become more nationalistic. They become more religious. So any cultural reference point that anchors them in time becomes inflated in its importance, and it placates this fear, right? And what they found in the experiments was that once people start talking openly about it, and now with my understanding of money work, I would actually say once people start to reclaim that which has been unconscious, the opposite effect takes place. So they become more open-minded, they become more tolerant, they become more forgiving, more loving. So I'd love you to talk a bit more about this process of healing and the kind of integration that you feel is needed so that people are not scared by this big zero, by this nothingness.
Well, I don't know what really I could say about this. Because one can wish it and will it for people, but there's a certain timing, in a sense, for everybody. And if your time is not ready for it, then there's nothing that you can really do or anybody else can do. It's like life has to produce the circumstances to allow this kind of opening that you're referring to happen. Of course, there are things we hope that it can be accelerated by things like the money work that we're doing. But there again, people have to be ready to be willing to open themselves to that, or to volunteer and ask for it to really happen. Or they don't always ask for it. Maybe you can not mind your own business and just do it and hope. But I don't think there's a general formula for this process. It's more like an emergent quality, I would say. It's something that's emerging, and where we are collectively emerging with our experience, and you could almost say experiment on being alive on this planet, for the period that we are together, for the blessed period that we are to meet each other, particularly in this kind of setting, because not every setting is, as we see today, is so blessed and so loving as we have the opportunity amongst ourselves here. And that's where the real challenge is, I think, for those of us that wish it to expand, to find ways for it, to search and find the ways for this to expand more. I mean, this is where my aspiration is, my heart is.
Well, and I think that raises a good question, right? Is there a way to speed this up, or isn't there? And I suppose it always depends a bit on how high is the balcony that you get onto, because in some ways, a part of me would say, well, of course, there's a way to speed it up, because that's why many of us do the work that we do, right? We permeate that layer of resistance with little nudges, and then they can sometimes lead to an opening. And at the same time, I can also step on a higher balcony and go, well, if that was possible, they were clearly ready for that to happen, right? So it's still this process of emergence, and maybe there's nothing we can do to speed it up. It's just what happens. Now, in this context of emergence, if we connect that to your concept or the principles that you've observed around source, right? And people who have who live creative authorship in a very conscious way. What do you feel is their role? Like what is the role of conscious sources on this planet, if any?
I've never looked at that in a kind of world context before. So I'm not sure if there's a sort of global answer to this, because being a source myself, one is usually just concentrated on one's own project and not and one's own field, and on helping the people within the field to realize their visions and projects, but not, as far as I can feel, outside one's own field, so that, in fact, as a source, your field and your vision can expand and be a global vision, but it still remains kind of your vision, and is not, as you know, it's never a collective vision. So when you ask like a world question, for me, it always, if I'm looking at it from a source perspective, it always comes back to an individual perspective of the world.
For sure, and I know that one of your topics right now is this whole question of interweaving, right?
Yes.
So the global comes into play in a different way, and maybe you can speak a bit into that.
Well, the interweaving, so the idea of what you're referring to is my major project for this year, which is the Summit of Summits, where we're looking to bring together, or I'm looking to bring together with your help and help of other people, leaders of summits, networks, and communities worldwide, to bring our energies together to have a voice which is an alternative voice to militarization, one can say, a voice which is, of course, for peace and prosperity in the world, and in my view is an unspoken voice of, generally, let's call it, civil society. I think most people in the world want peace and prosperity and hardly dare to put out their voice for it. And so this is what this project is actually starting with the leaders of summits and communities and networks, to have us all speak out together for this, and as an alternative voice, not as a criticism of anything that's going on, but just a loud alternative voice. So that's been what's coming through me as source as a project. And it involves, for me, the interweaving of the separate strands which are represented by these so many now communities, networks, and summits, but without pretending that I or we know how to do that, because I have a feeling we're in a new exploration. And that's the invitation here for those that are coming to Japan to explore this. But I feel that this is like, I have this image of different strands weaving into a kind of cloth, which will be a political force. And I use the word political intentionally from its origin of the word polis, which means people. So that it's a civil society cloth, if you like, which has a force which will be impactful, using that word, in terms of, for government, where we see the force at the moment, it's with government and with commerce, with the economic world, who are actually kind of interconnected in a different kind of way than interweaving. So that's the image that I have of this, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to express it, I'm not sure if I've really answered the question.
No, I think you did, because for me, you know, I do recognize and value your continuous bringing people back to, well, it's only about you and ever in this moment, right? So this is what's happening. This is what you have to deal with, is your own vision, your own resistance, your own friction, all of these things. So the collective is somewhat abstract. At the same time, in this vision that you described, I do feel that the interweaving has the potential to nearly create like a fascial network across the globe, where the globe then comes, that has its own way of operating and working together towards a future that we believe in is different than the future that we see being created at many places right now.
Right. And what I'm happy to share already, because I find it so interesting, you know, just in the course of sourcing this project and starting to organize it, is what's actually happening is that we're raising conflicts which are under the carpet of well-meaning people amongst our own summits and our own summits and networks and communities, as we start to suggest that we should interweave. So we're starting to raise the issues there. And imagine, I'm saying, imagine if we can't get our act together in that, how on earth do we expect nations to be able to do that? Yeah. So that's why I see this project, the value of this project that we're starting, is that we must learn how to be able to do and explore how to do this amongst ourselves first, before we cry, you know, that we should stop the military because people, you know, are feeling, you know, want to have more security because of the military. Of course, that's not going to work. But if we can't get our own act together, how on earth can we expect, you know, radical change for the military and so forth? So that's the essence of this project here.
Well, and I think it does bring us back to this whole question of how do we, you know, how personal is conflict, right? That the conflict in the world out there is always a conflict that we haven't resolved in ourselves. And to bring it back to that very, very personal point of approaching and owning it. And when we talked about if you want polarities that are to be integrated for every individual globally, right? Then we are talking about concepts like peace and war, security and insecurity, prosperity and scarcity, safety and unsafety, obedience and disobedience, certainty and uncertainty, being and doing, right? So there is so much where I can see the more we have integrated that, each of us individually, the more powerful we become as sources, and the more successful our processes and patterns of interweaving will become.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully, and we'll see.
The proof is in the pudding.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, that's the aspiration, and we'll just go for it and can't do more than that.
Wonderful. Peter, thank you so much for this sort of interview part. And actually, my sense is to have a moment for people to connect, and maybe allow you to connect in groups of twos and threes, just for 10 minutes, to talk about what landed in you, and how does that maybe connect to questions you already came with, but potentially also questions that came up or comments that came up during Peter's sharing. And then after 10 minutes, well, let's make it 8, just so it will be quick, just a quick having you voice been in the room, and then we'll see you back on the other side. Hello, lovely people. So you're coming back.
Wow, what a wonderful group of people there. I see Greg and Muna and Monica, Clarissa, and
yes,
somebody I don't know, Teresa. Hello, Teresa.
Hello. I'm in Portugal.
Ah, okay.
Away from you.
Ah.
Fantastic. So we're ready for questions for Peter, comments around anything and or what he shared. What's alive in you? Jan-Hendrik, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Nadia, for hosting this today. And Peter, so good to see you again after, I think it was 2 years now since we had our first interaction. And actually, a very, very interesting thing happened, or something for me, something completely unexpected happened once you started, Peter, talking about abundance versus prosperity. And I want to give you a little bit of context on this. As you know, I was struggling, and sometimes I'm still a little bit struggling with how to put what I want to do or what I am doing under one roof, that it I would say targets, on the one hand, the individual side, and on the other hand, so much the societal, the community side. And I came across the word of prosperity, and I put it for me with an extension of true prosperity, because for me, it reflects so much the individual aspect of a positive abundance now, if I can say it, or it's including not only material wealth, which is often seen as part of prosperity, but it's much more than just material wealth. So you bringing up this subject, or this word of prosperity, what was so much a how can I say this? Not a déjà vu, but something that right away resonated with me and gave me the answer why I wanted to participate in our today's interaction. And here's my. So I'm happy already for this thing, that there is already a resonance on this. But coming back to our discussion 2 years ago on the disruptor, or on the, you used the word annihilator with me at a certain point, and me being at a place now where I feel I'm ready. I'm so much ready. I'm much more ready than 2 years ago to loosen the handbrake and to bring my gifts to the world and so on, under the roof of true prosperity. So my question is, I have and I fully see, just one sentence on this, I fully see that society or community is always built out of individuals. So if I am not prosperous inside, or if I don't feel prosperity, true prosperity inside, I cannot create it in the outside. And I'm going to work with more entrepreneurs, with investors, with visionaries, with people of influence. So they are in positions where they have an influence into their organizations or even into communities. So long story short, the question is, how do you see this connection, or especially working on the connection of the inner prosperity, the wide word of prosperity, and societal prosperity? Because this is exactly the direction I'm heading towards.
Well, your question is very interesting in terms of what I shared in one particular way, and I'll answer in another way. But it's very interesting because the subtitle of our Summit of Summits in Japan is actually Creating Lasting Peace and Prosperity. And we're putting the emphasis on lasting. And the reason one of the main reasons we're going to Japan is that Japan has the best record in longevity in the whole world. So out of 1,000 companies in the world, for example, that were created before, that were founded before 1700 and are still alive today, this information is from Wikipedia, 553 are Japanese. More than 50% Japanese. So we're looking to immerse ourselves in the Japanese traditions there for the sake of something long-lasting. And we're calling it, for the first subtitle of the first summit, Lasting Peace and Prosperity. Now, I think we can't avoid the polarities, and there's a total contradiction or a paradox in this, of course, because in the sense of what I was referring to of abundance and the willingness to be in the other side as well. So in other words, if you only want the good, if you only want the prosperous, you're going to find yourself in the shortage all the time. And therefore there is, you know, this paradox is beyond words. And that's why the starting point is always in the acceptance of this abundance, actually. But understanding it really fully, because most people are thinking of abundance as prosperity. But the starting point is the nothingness and the everythingness of everything. And this is the reason, by the way, that we're not trying to fight the militarization. We're not commenting that, we're not against it. We're just looking to create another voice here, which is a legitimate voice, and I believe a very strong voice, and hoping that that will have an impact. But what we've seen is that, you know, what I'm really representing is that it's very easy to create a mob, to generate a lot of activity with a mob who are against things. And that's largely, unfortunately, where civil society is right now. And we're looking to generate a movement of wisdom, if you like, hoping to generate an intelligence which will hold the energy for what is going on in the world in a wise way. That's really the vision, if you like, here.
And Peter, to connect what we talked about previously to Jan Hendrik's question right now, that's also where I see the global role of sources in a way, right? Because what sources create is something to move towards with the visions that they bring into the world, rather than something to move against.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jan Hendrik, go forth, be prosper, and be an annihilate.
Yes, I will. Yes, I will. There's no doubt. And you gave another brilliant hint. True prosperity, or prosperity in general, cannot happen without the polar counterpart, with the opposite. And this is a lecture for me, for myself, that is beyond words. It's just so much the mirror for me, what I have experienced in the past years. And once this acceptance happens, which is about to happen, or which I'm moving towards more and more and more every day, a little bit more, the more the other side of the polarity opens. And this is a bit, looks a bit like a contradiction, but from the I would say from the perspective of everythingness, of fullness, it makes total sense. So
I'm gonna
thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
A number of hands raised. So
sorry.
you up. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Milaya Lodron. I live in south of France, but I have Austrian family. And I'm very new to the work. I'm right now in the ConsciousU money course with Agnes. And so I just started to get acquainted to the work here. And I'm here with a very personal question. And so I feel a little bit excited to ask it. I would like to hear your take, Peter, on the question of women and money. I am a trauma therapist and I'm working personally with a lot of women. And so the imprint of patriarchy and our situation as women in the world, and especially then when it comes to identifying that some women are here with the quality of source and the relation to money, receiving money and worth and these themes. And maybe a theme that is related to that, women and intimate relationship and money.
Wow.
Well, whatever angle you find you want to speak to, I handed over the whole package, but yeah.
Thank you. I think that's an enormous question, and I'm sure
Yes.
Nadia could spend hours answering it as well as myself, and she is, of course, a woman.
Yeah.
But let me be as full or as brief as full as I can be in a brief time. First of all, very many of the projections are seen to be women's stuff, but actually they apply equally to men. So there's a lot which is really non-gender, I would say. And I'm talking about, I've had masses of money seminars. Sometimes they're attended almost totally by women. Other times they're attended totally by men. And people derive different opinions about that. And sometimes they're completely mixed. It's an arbitrary relationship there.
Okay.
But there are certain things which are different. And I will just give you my very brief summary. My learning on this from a woman who gives money seminars was that one of the major differences is around the question of dependency.
Yeah.
That women are far more sensitive to the issue of being dependent than men. And this shows up in their money relationship in the terms that they are less willing to fight for money if they believe that on the other side, they're being recognized as being independent. So men who don't have any difficulty, whether they're dependent or less difficulty, I won't say no difficulty, less difficulty about being independent or dependent, are willing to negotiate much stronger than women. So that's one message that I have received, which you can look at and see whether it might apply in the people the women you know. The other thing I would say is that I've written this book called 30 Lies About Money. And my biggest lie in it is that the book actually has 31 lies. And the 31st lie looks at the lie of men dealing with money better than women. And I come to the conclusion in that lie, and you can buy the book, it's also in French and in German, that actually, generally speaking, women deal with money better than men. The general thought is that men, so this is the content of this lie, the general thought is that men deal with the long term because they're dealing with investments and pension funds and so forth. And women are just dealing with the household. But if you look at the truth of this, women are looking at the household with a long-term perspective. And men actually have a very short-term perspective. They're buying and selling investments. They're not really looking at the long term. So long term, I would say that women are dealing better than men. So those are my two quick answers, and I'm sure Nadia has something to say too.
Thank you, Peter. Very valuable.
Interesting. And, you know, on the one hand, I fully agree that a lot of this is not gendered around money because it's so deeply rooted in our personal family history and sort of the intergenerational patterns. However, I do think that there are some gender dynamics. For me, in particular, I see something around men and power, which is maybe the polarity to the women and dependency in some ways, right? So for men, power and money are often equated quite closely. The other pattern that I can see from the comments that we get on the ConsciousU on the CU Money platform, right? And now having had hundreds of people go through the program, we are becoming aware of that it seems to be much more difficult for men to give without being paid, and much more difficult for women to receive without having given. And, you know, one small example, we have a sliding scale in CU Money, right? So we give people the option to pay the full price, to pay a reduced price, or even to send us an email when they cannot pay the lowest reduced price that we have on the website and make us an offer. The pattern that we see every cohort is when a woman requests a lower price, either within even the spectrum, but goes to lowest end or below that, we get these long emails of explanations around why she didn't, feel that she was in a position to pay more. And it's basically one giant apology for daring to take this place and asking for permission. We never receive emails like that from men, not one. Yeah, in 400 participants. When men take a lower price, the emails that we have received from men are, I will take the lowest price now because I want to see how this works. And if I think it's worth it, and if I do think it's worth it, then maybe I'll pay a bit more later. Right. So there's a very different dynamic also around entitlement when it comes to money and taking something for free, which I feel I actually want to promote in women to be a bit more greedy and a bit more, taking your space. So
yeah, thank you for your take on that too, Nadjeschda. Wonderful. Thank you. I feel very nourished.
Wonderful. And I will bring Greg online. Thank you, Milaya. I will.
Thank you.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, Peter. Because I like to be brief, I would have two questions. One, linked to the source. I discovered a book which is called The Path of Least Resistance from Fritz, and I don't know if you know it. And if you don't, if you do, could you share with us what would be your insights? And as I asked Nadia, if you had if you did an update in a previous MAA about about retirement plan, I would like to know in the new world when it could collapse the money, etc. What would be your view on the retirement plans that we might have in 20 or 30 years? And what could we do now? Especially, I loved your free advices. And so it was my two questions.
Thank you, Greg. Peter, any thoughts on the first one? I don't know the book, so.
So I haven't read the book, but I do remember, he's out of my, the author, what's his name? He's out of my generation.
Yes,
Fritz.
Definitely Robert Fritz. And it is, as you said
Fritz.
earlier, he said, solving problems has nothing to do about creating. Creating is something moving forward, and solving problem is about trying to erase something. So that's why I saw that it might be connected to the source.
Well, I like that idea. Actually, what I remember about the Robert Fritz's work is this dynamic tension, or what does he call it, between vision and reality.
Yeah.
And that's what we're about, which I can fully agree with, assessing your vision, current reality, and that's the step, like an elastic band. I remember he's saying, pulling up towards your vision. The idea of, it's interesting because there's a good question around the word or the notion of creating. And there is an argument that says if you need to create something, it's because it's non-existent, it doesn't exist. In other words, you're coming from a position of missing something or lack and wanting to create it, whereas in truth, it actually exists and you're just not in touch with it. And I think this is what you're referring to with Fritz's statement, that actually it's there all the time. We're talking about abundance again, but you're not in touch with it. So you talk about creating it, but actually what you're looking to do is reconnect with it. Now, when I'm using the word creating, so, you know, we're even talking about, what we're talking about here is reclamation. What Fritz is talking about is reclamation, reconnecting and reclaiming your connection to it. Now, I'm, even with the Summit of Summits, I'm talking about creating peace and prosperity, lasting peace and prosperity. I'm using the word very consciously, because I think this is the language that people will be able to respond to and connect with the language. But actually what we're really doing in truth is helping a reclamation process to reclaim peace and prosperity, or reclaim peace and abundance at the end. So this is, if you like, the language you're using is almost like a pretext for what I understand is a much deeper process. But I think it's useful to be conscious enough to be able to use language in a way where I hope will be workable and more understandable. So that's my rather complex response to this, and I'm very happy you raised the question and brought in Robert Fritz, who I honor from those days as well. I think he made a good contribution in those days with that book, actually, and his work.
Yeah, thank you.
Have you got any thought about your view, your updated view, which came from one of the lines on your book about retirement, pensions, and how we could project ourselves in the next years and what we could do now about it?
Well, my suggestion in the book, and it's still valid totally, is look after your health. I say don't count on your pension, because it's going to, you know, at least for the moment, and it looks, even when you're going to be pensioned, it looks like it's evaporating in terms of purchasing power. So don't invest in it. That's why it was the suggestion in the book, and I'd still suggest that invest in yourself and your health and what you love doing. And if you've got funds to do that right now, rather put them in that than put them in your own pension fund.
And Peter, what you said to me way back when were actually three things, and I think, Greg, I shared that in one of our AMAs, which was invest in your health, invest in your education, and invest in your relationships.
Yeah,
right? Those were the three pillars. And Greg, maybe something quite concrete, and maybe at a future AMA I can talk a bit more about this in detail, but one of the experiments that I just started in Berlin is to create what I call a conscious money tribe. It's at this moment in time around 22 people. I decided for the aforementioned gendered responses around money and giving and taking to focus this group on women, non-binary people, transgender women. And what we're doing is we created a sharing circle in a way, right? To have this idea now that we will meet in person every 6 weeks. And every 6 weeks, every person in this group will put into our shared treasure what she can give with love. And that is including money, but it exceeds money. So yesterday we had the first meeting. We raised 1,500 euros and 2 home-cooked dinners, 1 babysitting evening, 1 weekend in the countryside, and somebody who can help with text and editing work for anybody who needs it. And now the idea is that we practice taking, because actually for a lot of, I find, let's say, not male socialized persons, the giving part is much easier because that's what we've been trained to do, and the taking part is very tricky. So one participant had the outrageous proposal that she said, how about if not, whatever is left in the pot after 3 meetings is going to be burned, right? So if there's money left in the pot or other resources left in the pot, it will go up in flames. That should hopefully encourage us to start taking, because the idea is, how do we keep this in flow? And for me, the reason why I founded this is exactly for what you've been asking about, because I do think that a lot of the systems we still rely on in Germany, for example, will not exist in the future in quite the same way. So I want to encourage us to build our own structures of solidarity and support. And, you know, I will keep you posted how that's going. Maybe that will go all up in flames. I don't know, but that's...
And I know that because you are building that and building the conscious money community, especially in France, I don't know about Belgium, those are major subjects for people. You were talking about fear. When you are 70 or 75 or 80 and you don't have money to pay the bills of the hospital or all those things. So I think that especially in your community and what you are creating with the conscious you money and spirit, we should dig into that. Thank you for creating those opportunities.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Craig, for your wonderful questions. Peter, we are at the top of the hour. Do you have a few more minutes for 2 more raised hands? Or
Yes, of course. It's flown so far.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Then I'll add Katharina.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, Katharina.
Hey. I have a quite personal question about source. First of all, I want to bring into this space also that getting to know source work feels like has saved my life in my project. It really, after 1.5 years of struggle and not finding solution, this came in as like really as salvation. So I'm so grateful, and spreading it in all my networks as well. Thank you to everybody here involved. And my question is about my case, that I created seminars, courses, in which another person, my partner, is the main like content giver. So, and somehow we started this together, but it became very clear that I am the source, and kind of this confusion between us we had struggled with this for a long time, and now this is clear. And still it seems weird to me that I open a field where he has sort of a teacher position and teacher-student position. And why is it not his, like Peter, you talk about your field of the work that you are spreading, and it's your field. But in my case, my partner is spreading his work, very precious work in my field, because only like both of us, 90% of our work is this project together, and we've created something amazing. But I don't understand that I shall know like the decisions about next formats and next dates and all of this. It's my job, and it's clearly I have the inspiration for it. Yeah. Can you say something to this?
Well, do you have what's the issue there, or what's the question that you have around it? Do you feel that that's unfair, or what's the problem with that?
It's just yeah, it works well so far, but it feels weird that of course he's in his decision power, because he can also step out and create his own stuff, his own field, really. But it's weird that he's somehow in such a powerful position with his content, attracting many people, or I don't know who's attracting the people, but it's happening in my field, and it's confusing me a bit.
So I don't understand why it's confusing you. Why would you be confused? I mean, you have created a wonderful field for him to play in.
Yep.
What happens to you when I say that?
Right now, it's beautiful to hear it, and I've had a lot of acknowledgement issues in the past. A lot. It's getting better with this whole source understanding, but yeah, I wonder, it's also this female not being acknowledged, work in the background.
Yeah.
Stuff.
So what would happen if you say to yourself, I am brilliant?
Ah.
Go on, try.
I can whisper it.
No, we want it out loud.
So much tension. I am brilliant.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, still feels a bit like a lie, but also landing bits.
Where is it in your body right now? Which chakra, if you work with the chakras in your heart?
Yeah. Yeah.
You haven't allowed yourself to say that, because maybe you've heard the reverse or something like that, which is also true, of course.
Yeah.
What is the reverse of that? I'm brilliant. It can be in German too.
Yeah, I think not good enough. I'm not good enough. Yeah.
Okay. So try saying that too.
I'm not good enough.
Yeah, it's much easier, isn't it?
Yeah, it's easier. Jeez, yeah.
So which one is more positive for you? I'm not good enough, or I'm brilliant, or are both negative?
No, the brilliant is more positive. It's like,
Is it really? Is it really? So how would you know if it is? How would you know when you're brilliant?
Has to do with success, having professional success, which I actually do also in a position, but it's more about people come for my knowledge or my ability. Yeah.
I think that's it. I think we're right on the button now.
Mm.
So now the statement, what I'd like you to try and say is, I am brilliant, whether people come from my knowledge or not.
Mhm. I am brilliant, whether people come for my knowledge or not.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel it in my base, in my hips, very
Mhm.
strong, like tingling.
Mm.
Yeah, it will need a bit of time for this to land.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so you can take your time with that and run with that, because I think it's very good for you.
Mm.
And the opposite would be, I'm not good enough, and it's perfect.
Yeah, I like that. I'm not good enough and it's perfect. Yeah.
Because that can
Feels
be very,
free. Yeah.
very freeing. That can be very helpful for not putting yourself into things which are not yours,
Mm.
like trying to teach like he does.
Yeah.
You're not good enough for that.
Yeah.
That's good.
And that's good, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for taking in.
It's a pleasure. Let me just check with Nadia, because Nadia often has little snippets, which are nuggets on top of whatever I have to say. Any nuggets?
The only thing that I thought, Katharina, is I often like to work with this metaphor of inner rooms, right? And that one of those two rooms connected is one that you're quite familiar with, which is the I'm not good enough room. And the I'm brilliant room is less familiar to you. Do some interior decorating. So think about, what does your I'm brilliant room look like? And then you can even do a transfer and see how you can bring some of that into your actual physical environment as a bridge.
Mm.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Have some fun with it.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Katharina.
Thank you.
Thank both of you.
And you're getting thanks in the chat as well,
Yeah, lovely.
because you're so brilliant.
Thanks everybody for witnessing and being there.
So lovely people. I actually have to be out of here in 2 minutes. I would say we'll take this as a natural moment in time to close. Let me just remove our spotlight videos. I'd love to see everybody in a tile. Can you unmute yourself so that we can do our goodbye ritual? And then find somebody in the tile next to you, tickle some hands, say goodbye, create some connections. It was wonderful to see you. Peter, thank you so much as always.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Nadia.
much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
all.
Bye-bye.
It's
all.
very
Bye-bye.
rich and great.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Vinaya, thank you, Monica.
Bye.
Thank you,
Ciao,
Buddha.
ciao.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye, Peter, and
Bye.
Ciao,
Christina,
ciao,
and
Katarina.
Diana,
Everyone
Christina,
else.
Nadia.
William Anderson.
Thank you.